Kum Lenin Ablat Gemara. We're up to Megilah Daf Gimel Amud Aleph Bei Shvat. And we are talking about the number of aliyahs for Rosh Chodesh and the Yom Tov, Kippur, Shabbos. Okay, we are up to the first wide line in the Gemara in the middle of the page. So Hani Shloisha, the three that you do on a Monday, Thursday, the Shabbos Mincha, Chamisha, those you do on a Yom Tov, the Shiva, and those you do on Shabbos, Keneged Me, corresponding to what? Why do we do that? Now, we're not going to ask about, to explain, we're not going to ask about Rosh Chodesh and Chol Hamoed. We understand over there. It's one more, you have Musaf, and therefore you have an extra aliyah. But once you have that, why do you keep on adding 5 and 7? Why do that? You keep it, we'll talk about soon. Kenegemi Pligi brothers and argument Rabbi Yishchak bar Nachmani v'chadi imei. Rabbi Nachmani, a friend of his, Umani, who is that? Rabbi Shimon ben Pazi. I'm others say Rabbi Shimon ben Pazi. It was Rabbi Shimon ben Pazi v'chadi imei, one with him, Umani Yishchak bar Nachmani. What exactly is the point of this argument? Not sure. But Amri and others say it was Rabbi Shmuel bar Nachmani. It wasn't Rabbi Yishchak bar Nachmani. It was actually Rabbi Shmuel bar Nachmani. And Chadam, one of them says, Keneged birchas kainim. Birchas kainim, the first bracha is made up of 3 words, the next bracha is made up of 5, the next bracha is made up of 7, and the bracha of kainim is all about shalom, and Teda, and Teda is a basis for shalom. So therefore, that's why we have these different number of aliyahs, and the chadamar. Remember, it's only the Rabbanan, this thing of aliyah. So therefore, we're trying to find some kind of a smachta on what we base on. The chadamar says, "Can I get shloisha shomire hasaf?" It's not, but the outcome of the Torah is more to do with the cover of Torah. Just like we have the Shloisha Shomrei Asaf protecting the king. It says in one passage there were 3 people, and Chamisha Merei Pnei Melech, Hashiva Rei Pnei Melech, B'Chashverosh, there were 7 councils there, and 5 of them were more chashav than the other ones. So you have 5, then you have 7. No, but it's all about the Torah, all about the covered HaTorah, and that's why you have these number of aliyahs, 3, and then 5, and then 7. Tony Rabbi Yisrael, the Braisa, I'll tell you why Gimel, Chamisha, Veshiva, Shloisha. I like the reason that you said right now. It has to do with the cover of Torah, Malchus, Shemile Hasaf, Chamisha, 5, Merei Pnei Melech, those that see the king, and Shiva Rei Pnei Melech. Amle Baya, Baya said to him, even until now, my time of late Paulus Laman, how can you never tell us anything about this till now? Amalei said to them, I had no idea that you actually wanted to know this, because in truth, he says to them, or he said it a number of times, have you ever asked me a question? I didn't answer you. I always answered you. So therefore, it's your fault. You just didn't ask the right question. Amalei Yaakov Minom. Yaakov the Min said to Rabbi Yehuda, Tais says he cannot believe that the word Minah should be there, because Yaakov the Apokaitis, if it's Yaakov the Apokaitis, they wouldn't have put the name Yaakov there, it's a shame to Shem Yirkov. The Gemara wouldn't have called him that. So he said the Giza should be Yaakov Matzah. Said to Rabbi Yehuda, Hani Shisha the Kippur, we resolved the weekday Yom Tov and Shabbos, or Yom Kippur, why 6 then by Yom Kippur? Amalei said, "Can I get shisha?" This corresponds to the 6 sha'amdei miyamino shel Ezra v'shisha mismolei. There were 6 people on the right side of Ezra HaKohen, Ezra Sefer, and there were 6 on his left side. And how did we see that? Shenema said, "Possible Yamed Ezra HaSefer am Migdalei." He stood there on the wooden platform. Asher Osu Ladova, they made for this. Vayamed Etzlein, who stood next to him? A number of Kohanim on his right side is Matisyo, and Shama, and Anoya, and Uriah, and Chelkia, Umasa. Al Yamino, they were all standing on his right side. Umismoile on his left side was standing Pedoyo, Umishoel, Malkia, the Choshum, the Chashbadana, and Zechariah Mishul, which actually makes 7. Says the Gemara, Hani Shiva have it's actually 7, not 6. Hainu Zechariah, Hainu Mishulim. In fact, Zechariah and Mishulim are one and the same. So by my Kodah Mishulim, why did they nickname him Mishulim? The Mishulim Ba'uvda, that he was complete in his activities. The word Shalom, complete. So what we learned. Hakoil Oilin Leminyan Shiva, everybody can go up to be counted in the number of 7 by the aliyahs. Vafilu cotton, even a child. Vafila Isha, even a woman. Some of the Rishonim say that this thing here, that everyone can be counted as part of the 7, is talking about after the Aliyah of Shlishi. The first 3 is the like Mamish the Chiyuv, and therefore you cannot be part of that. It's only beyond that. And that is why some people say that the Shlishi is the most important Aliyah, because Shlishi is the real Chiyuv for Yisrael, more than the other Aliyahs following that. Now, this many say that this is talking about the time when they didn't have to make a bracha. This is talking about before the takana, not after the takana, when every single person makes a bracha and they have to be moitzi everybody with the brachas. And then even a cotton, even an issue in Rosh Hashanah takes us a whole discussion whether a woman has a chiyuv and creates a Torah or not. So here it says clearly that a woman can be called up an aliyah. The Chacham say a woman shouldn't be called up the Torah because covered at tzibur. That's why women don't have an aliyah. And the whole controversy today about women having aliyahs are based on what some of them, I guess we say the model of Rabbanim argue that if it's covered hatzibur, what happened? The tzibur says we don't mind, and the tzibur says we don't mind. Then why can't they? Women have aliyahs. That's really what the controversy is. And all those, the vast majority, who say that you cannot is because if they bring a number of proofs that cover whatever the Gemara says something is forbidden because covered hatzibur. It's not a question of as a Tur adds in the Bach. It's not because the tzibur doesn't like it and we make a vote. It's because covered tzibur means cover the Eibishter. And if it's not covered the Eibishter, no one has the right to be Meichel. And that's where covered tzibur. Therefore, covered tzibur is not something that's up to us. It's just a statement to say that's not covered for tzibur to have this representative, them in relation vis-a-vis the Eibishter himself. So you cannot forego this. And that's why today Isha cannot have an aliyah. So we have the following question: Maftir, the one who gets haftarah, is he part of the 7 Kurim or is he separate? A big argument. One of them says that he is part of the 7, and one of them says he's not part of the 7. He reads the Torah. And the one who says he's not part of the 7 is like why is the one who gets maftir also reads the Torah? If they cover Torah to honor the Torah, what do you mean to honor the Torah? The reason why we start have Torah is because of the Gzeir of the Chachamim, the Gzeir of the Goyim didn't let us read the Torah. So they came up with the idea of finding a Haftarah which has a similar theme as the Parsha, and that's why there are many Svarim written to show how the Haftarah that we read has sometimes it's an overt connection, sometimes you need to dig a little bit deeper to be able to realize what the connection is. After the Gzeir was over, the Chachamim decided, no, we'll leave the Haftarah in there. But if the Haftarah has its own aliyah, then it looks like Haftarah Nevi'im is equal to the Torah. So I'll cover that Torah. We say, you know what, the person gets aliyah should also read a few psukim in the Torah, and therefore it's not in anybody showing it's a Torah. In Haftarah we have 7 brachas that you make in total by Haftarah because there's a time that the Haftarah replaced the Kriyas HaTorah. So therefore we had 7 brachas to show that this is representing the 7 aliyahs. Anyhow, so this is the machlekes. The kivin the shum covered the whole reason why he reads Chavat Torah. The whole reason we read Torah is the minion not counted. Torah says that the halacha is that the one who says it is part of the 7, and therefore on a tainus number 3 actually does the Haftarah. So we see that he's a chiv. But on Shabbos, why on Shabbos then do we repeat and not give extras? Because on Shabbos we're allowed to do Haisafis. And that's why we say, you know what, we'll have Shiva Kurim plus the Haftarah, because you're allowed to have a suffix, you're allowed to add. And that's why on Yom Tov, the one of Haftarah actually reads a separate portion, doesn't repeat what the other ones said, has a separate portion. It says more further. Now it's clear the one who says that the person gets Haftarah is counted as a 7, then the person gets Haftarah does not repeat what the other ones did. He does he has his own psukim. Today the minig became it's only a minig today. Amol used to be that whether you learn oila or not oila, the Haftarah also read new psukim. It wasn't a repeat of before. And what we have today is, like Taisus points out, there are many parts of davening that were done later by Menhagim from Tanoim or later on, and that's how it became. And he brings an example, Yidu and Einu, those that say Yidu and Einu, and so on and so forth. Says about it further, makes us a question of Mafti Benovi. It says, if someone says Mafti Benovi, the Haftarah shouldn't be less than 21 psukim, corresponding to 7 aliyahs of 3 psukim. But connected shiva got about Torah. Now, if it's true, and that's why I told you we have to make some brachas. If true, if you tell me the Haftarah reads is a separate aliyah, so then there should be 8. Sorry, if you tell me the Haftarah is not part of the aliyahs. If you talk about Torah is part of the 7 aliyahs, that's why you have 21 psukim. So if you tell me it's not part of the 21 aliyahs, then it should be 24. It's clear from the Gemara here that the Haftarah does not repeat the psukim of the 7th aliyah. Because if the Haftarah is repeating what Shvi read, what's the most question? Why should you read an 8th one when there's no new psukim being read? It's clear there was a time when the Haftarah, whoever it was, read the last few psukim of the parsha. The one at Shvi, they stopped right before that. And then when I ask a question, if the Haftarah is not part of it, so there's 8 aliyahs. Okay, so then it should be 24 psukim. And when I answer is keeping from Haftarah, we're not leaning because we might see anybody, but because of the We're doing it because covered Haftarah, that it shouldn't be seen that like Haftarah or the Novim is equal to the Torah. So therefore, we don't have to do anything to remember those 3 psukim. So it's clear to the time that the Haftarah didn't read, it was only later on that it was changed. When exactly Tosfos doesn't say. Maskil Rava is a question about the Seich. Sofu, there is an Haftarah that we read, the pasuk of the Seich Sofu of the Chechem, and so on. There's only is much less than 21 psukim, but we read it. Answer the Gemara, shiny Hossam the Salah Kinyan. The rule is that even if it's less than 20 psukim, if that's a complete paragraph, not a complete subject, then that's good enough. So what do you tell me? But if it's not a complete subject, we don't stop. It once happened. Once you read 10 psukim, he told us, Afsiku, stop reading the Haftarah, even though it was right in the middle of the Inyan. It wasn't 21 psukim. It wasn't the end of an Inyan, and he told us to stop. Says the Gemara, Mokum Sheyesh Turgum and Shiny. That was in a place where they used to translate the psukim, and that took double the time or triple the time, and therefore it was Tichad Tzibura, and that's why he said, the whole thing of Haftarah today is only a minute. Tichad Tzibura, cut it out. You see from the Gemara here, and a few places before, how important it is to be cognizant of Tichad Tzibura, to a chazan to be aware when they gargle, that they're, when they're schlepping, or a rav when they speak and they speak too long. You have to be aware of Tichad Tzibura. If you're making people uncomfortable, it seems that it's actually you did the wrong thing. And the Gemara here changes rules. Haftarah cut it down from 21 to whatever it is because of Tichad Tzibura. We don't want that. Says the Gemara. The turn up. There's no turgman. Sheyesh Turgman Paisik, we stop. And Tosfos doesn't have the page. This is the reason why we no longer have a Turgman of Haftarah, because of Tichad Tzibura. That in itself is Tichad Tzibura. We stop that. And maybe that's the reason why we stop Megilah Daf as well. Next Mishnah, ein person al Shema, you're not poidus on Shema. What exactly? The Mishnah will tell us a number of things that we need a minyan, and will tell us where we learn out the concept of a minyan. It says here, you're not poidus on Shema. Rashi learns if somebody comes to shul after the minyan already said Shema, Yemes Baruch Hu, and all that. So what do? So there's a machlekes whether you need 7 people who came late to shul, 6 people, 5 people, and Rashi the Chuvas writes even 1 person. And the what? So 1 person stands up, says if there's a minyan in the shul, even though they all already said it, says Kaddish and Baruch Hu, and says the first brach of Krishma Yotzam Ba'oris. And that's what the word person is, break in half, pras, break in half. You're breaking the davening in half. And other Rishonim, the Ram learns the pshat is, there were 10 people in shul, but each one davened b'yichidus. They didn't form a minyan. So there was no Kaddish and no Kedusha. So one of them gets up and does a Kaddish and a Baruch Hu for all the 10. And then some of the Rishonim attack those people that after davening they come along and they say, just get up, they didn't daven, they say a Baruch Hu, so that they can have a Baruch Hu. They're talking about the middle of davening. They all daven themselves individually for whatever reason. Interesting, they didn't form a minyan. And then, so one of those people stand up and make Kaddish and Baruch Hu, and they begin the brach of Yotzer. And the word Poidus is to divide. And then you jump straight to Shemoneh Esrei. We're talking about this still before Shemoneh Esrei. And it seems, it says under the Shainim, that they didn't even daven. They never had a chazan coming up to the Amud until Shemoneh Esrei. In fact, you see, if you ever go to Svarah Sheminyan, they don't have a chazan till Baruch Hu. Prior to Baruch, everyone sits in the seats and they just all daven together. Okay. And others, a person is that you shouldn't have a person saying Shema on behalf of everyone else and being Yotzer unless you have a minyan. That's what Peirush Shema is. That's how the Rav and some others talk about. So let's continue. So this person, whatever the shot the person is, you don't do that without a minion. Being over leaving that table, nor do you go to the Amud before without a minion. So the person is Shema, and they didn't go to the Amud until Shemona Esrei. That's how they used to do that. They know as campaign, they don't do unless you have a minion. Being koydim betoyed, no there's a creates a toyed unless there's a minion. The aim of tida benovi does not have toyed without a minion. Being ocean maimed the moisture by an oval. They used to when they carried out the coffin, they would stop 7 times and they would sit down like we do with the Yosef. They used to do say whatever it is, and you stop and you say Kim Alachav. So they would stop 7 times and they would cry in the mess, and then they would sometimes make a hesped, and they would make 7 ma'amodos u'moshavos. And they would say, stand up, your precious ones, or sit down, you dear ones. And they don't do that unless there's a minion. As we'll see anymore. You don't make the bracha of Avelim. We'll see later. I mean, it's not from a benching. We'll see later the bracha of made out the street. Unless you had a minion, but Tanchumi Avelim, and then they used to make a shura, and everyone used to give Tanchumim. They would, you wouldn't make the shura with 10 people. Ubirchas Chasanim, and so to show brachas, you don't make it unless you have 10 people. But ein mezamnin b'shem. Nor do you say in the Varach Elokenu unless you don't have a minion. And then he says something totally out of left field. Property of Hegdish you want to redeem and need to make an assessment evaluation. You should have 10 people there as well. Tisha, and one of them should be a kohen. And the Adam Geisben also, if a person was consecrated, we'll see more later. A person said, I'm going to donate my value to Beis Hamikdash. Also, you need 10 people. Second one, first of all, how do you know the whole idea of a minion? Says, it says in Parashat make me holy amongst the Yidden. It said, make me holy amongst the Yidden. So we know that Kedusha is only Toich B'nei Yisrael. How many people are we talking about? Toich Vidashti means we're saying Kaddish and all that. Called over Kedusha, yet Parashat less 10. My mashma, how do you learn from there? The Torah here, ask you learn out. Toich. Ksiv Ha'ir says Dashi b'Toivnei so. Ksiv Ha'ir says over there, by Kairach Hashem says to Moshe Rabbeinu, step aside. He bodlu mit Toicha Eda, go away from Toicha Eda. So we learn Toich that a Toich needs an Eda. Fine, and how many people constitute an Eda? The Asya Eda. Then we learn Kairach from the Meraglim. By Kairach, he used the word Eda. By Meraglim, it says Ksiv Ha'ir Ad Mosai leEda Harazot. How much longer can I tolerate this terrible community of bad Meraglim? And you shouldn't call the word bad. So you had 10 left. It is first of all the Mefarshim ask, how do you learn? You can't have a Gzera Shavah to teach you another Gzera Shavah. Here's 2 Gzera Shavas. You can't do that. So we answer it's not really 2 Gzera Shavas. It's only holding to Rabban anyway. So it's not really.
Right. In your works, you could use Escaval Race Course Road, Brunswick Road, or
so it's not really. Somebody can mute themselves. So it's not really we're learning from there, but it's very odd that we learned the whole concept of a minion from Koirach and from the Meraglim, the worst possible case. So we can explain that the reason why we learn from Koirach and Hadassah is that we're learning from the word Toich. It's all about Toich, to tell you that every Yid, don't just judge them on how they behave on the surface. Every Yid, the Toich is pure. So even Koirach, it says Pikachoya, and he was a tzaddik, and he meant well. Looking into all the Chassidish Sfarim, he made a mistake, but he came from a good place, not from a bad place. And the same thing is by the Meraglim. They wanted to stay in the Midbar because they wanted to learn Torah without all the challenges that agriculture would have. So because even though ostensibly they appear to be the Shayim, but Toich, if you dig inside, you'll find that that's tzaddikim. That's why every Yid can be counted as a minion. Every Yid is considered a Yid because you have to learn how to look at the Toich. That's what we learn from there, the concept of a minion. Says the Gemara further, continuing the matters of what you need a minion, the Chav Gimel on the base in the middle of the page. That when you by a funeral, you're sitting down and standing up 7 times. You should have a minion. Keep it by the member. You have to say Since you have to say stand up, you pray, you dear one, stand up, or Shvu Yikarim Shavu. But less than 10 people, it's not really appropriate to go through the whole exercise. My birchas avelim. What's exactly birchas avelim? Birchas achava. The bracha you make out in the street. 10 people. The ain avelim in haminyan. The avelim are not part of the minyan because we have two different brachas. One bracha you give to all those who came to console the avel. So the avel is not part of that. So therefore you make a separate bracha to say, oh, you guys should be rewarded for coming here and so on and so forth. And then there's a separate bracha that you give to them. You relate to the avelim themselves. So therefore you cannot combine the two. And you say, the Eibusher should be Baal Nechamis, should be Menachem you, so therefore you can't combine the two. But Birchas Chasanim is also Basar. We're learning more in the beginning of the line. How do you know that? And the Chasanim Mina Minyan, but the Chasanim are part of the Minyan itself. They're also part of the. And no reason why they shouldn't be part of Minyan. Less than 10 people passage to say include the Eibusher's name. Because if it was a chashuva thing, then you should have had more people. A chashuva meal, you have a lot of people at the meal, so you need a quorum. V'akakoy is property. When you want to assess property to redeem from the base of Hamikdash, you need 10 people. Tisha v'koy, 9 people in the koy. V'adam ki yitzibehen, and a person is similar to that. What do you mean if you consecrate a person and then you want to know how much to pay? You have to have 10 people. Says the Gemara. And immediately, how do you know? There's how much more so small. I saw the koining psuva the parsha says 10 times the word koyin. In the parsha where it talks about Hagdish, it says 3 by Erchin and 3 by Behemah when you consecrate it, and 4 by property, by land when you give to the base of English. And so therefore, you're going to pay out Hagdish, you need 10 people. So Chadlagu, for the first coin, you need a coin. And all the other ones are just what needs to tell you again, coin. Obviously, tell you what, they mirachamid. And you don't have one meat after one meat, elder rabbis to include. So you have nine Yisraelim and one kohen. Tish Yisraelim and kohen. Says the Gemara, I don't understand. Okay, you have the first time kohen you need it. The second time you don't need, so we say that's coming to tell you don't need a kohen. It's like a double negative to positive, so you can have Yisrael. But the next time it says kohen, you do need it to tell you that this time I want a real kohen. So every second kohen is actually necessary. And the other kohen is the miyat. So you should have 5 Yisrael and 5 kohen. Good question. We don't have an answer. What do you mean? How do you make a person holy, consecrate a person? I person, I'm giving my value to the base of Mikdash. And then you go out in the slave market and you work out what his value is. For that you need 10 people. You assess him like a slave. The Eved is we know that a slave is compared to property. It says you should inherit them, bequeath them to your children after you as an inheritance. So therefore these are the same words we use for property, for land. So therefore slaves are like land. You need 10 people. Next Mishnah. One reads psukim should not read less than 3 psukim, corresponding to the Kohen, Levi, and Yisrael. When it comes to the Torah, we want a maturgman to tell us exactly what each pasuk is about, because these are lessons in life and how to live, and halach and so on and so forth. So therefore, we can only do one pasuk at a time, no more than that. When it comes to Navi, we can do 3 psukim at a time. But again, it's only the story. There's no real halachas there. What happens if you have a situation, and the Gemara will give an example where you have it 3 psukim, but each pasuk is a separate subject. Then even in the Navi, if it's 3 separate subjects, then the maturgman does only one pasuk at a time. Medalgin bin Navi, by a Navi, you could take parts of different Naviim and mix them together from one portion to another. But a Medalgin b'Torah, the Torah, you cannot mix 2 different parshas. Even though we'll see later by the Gemara talk about Yom Kippur, the Kohen Gadol, we did mix, skip a few psukim and so on. But generally, we'll see later why we can do that. Because what happens in the Torah, if you start skipping around, people get very unsettled. What's going on over here? How much can you skip? In other words, you're going to be you're going to have to you roll the Nevi'im or roll the Torah. That takes time. So how much can you skip? The Turgman takes a few seconds or whatever, a minute to explain that pasuk. So therefore, that's the most you can only roll while he's talking. The moment he stops, you shouldn't be rolling anymore. So in other words, a short section you can skip over, but not a long section. Okay, we'll stop here. We'll continue tomorrow.